Have y'all ever wondered about the question of bilingual education? Is that language is so interesting. Is that it's so integrated within culture. It really gives light to where somebody is from. And more importantly, even though they might be speaking the same language as per se another country, within its own dialect, it carries its own meaning. It carries its own significance. We can look at the language of Spanish, for example. Is that Mexican Spanish is different than actual Spaniard Spanish. And it kind of has that different interesting characteristics that one may be able to understand where somebody is from due to that one area and due to the way that they speak. But then why learn two languages? Why should we learn two languages in the first place? Is that I can remember back to my my freshman and sophomore year of high school, taking Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 and kind of learning the language at first is how honestly the only thing that I can remember from that is puto ir al baño. Can I go to the bathroom? Because I wanted to go to the bathroom because that's the only thing that really mattered to me at that point is to learn that area so that I can go use the restroom because my professor would not let me go uh, at another time if I didn't use that exact terminology. But this idea of bilingual education is that it's the instruction or teaching of another language. Is that this idea of learning another language and kind of integrating that into our own life is that we have programs such as Rosetta Stone or many other programs that we can download on our phones, our laptops, on our iPads, and just kind of learn different languages. And that's all great and all. However, it should be done in a classroom. It should be done in a classroom because that's where it can actually take effect, where it can actually benefit. Everything about that nature. But why learn two languages? Why should I tell you to learn these things? Why does it pertain to you? Well, it's because we're young. And I'd imagine if we would have moved to another country, our kids moved to another country, how do you think that it would make our kids feel? Whenever we think about how they might be ostracized, how they might not be treated fairly, how they might not be able to be given the same opportunities as we have here in America. Joseph Guzman from the Learning English Strange as It May Seem article, he talks about how kids are not proficient in speaking English here in the United States is that about 10% of the US population is within school enrollment. That's about 6.3 million people. About 2.4 million of those kids are not proficient in English. How do you think that makes them feel? Do you think that they have the same capabilities to succeed as those who have grown up here, who have grown up learning the English language? I say no. I say no, they don't have the same opportunity because the SAT is in English, the ACT is in English. Many of the tests and how our professors speak is in English. So they might not be able to fully comprehend the lesson or the concepts that they're being taught. Is that it will give a voice to those who immigrate here, which is a wonderful thing. And so my three topics I'm going to look at is academics, the workforce, and also cultural diversity within America. Is that within academics, just how I referenced how 2.4 million of the students here in America are not proficient in English, is that there are many kids that just do not have the environment. Is that I was talking with one of my friends named Justin Alvarez, and how he would say that he would go to school and be surrounded by his English friends, and yet he would go home and only what his family spoken was Spanish. So he was barely getting any practice within the English language. And then we look at how many students must translate questions so they can understand the test. Is that their brains have been wired to only know Spanish or another language. I'm focusing on Spanish because of that we live in Texas and it's very prominent here. And then we look at another scenario within how Margaret Adams, in her article in Unmasking the Myths of Structured English Immersion, is that she kind of states that it is a sink or swim attitude. Is that whenever you kind of throw your kid, you're throwing these individuals into the deep end, and if they don't learn the English language, if they don't learn the bilingual education, then they won't be able to do that. They will not be able to succeed in their work. And so that's what happens with the academics. And we look at the workforce. Why should you take up a voice? Why should you learn another language? Why should you become a proponent with this? Why? Because there is better compensation for those who know two languages. Is that the language of business, the lingua franca, as we say, is English. However, we live in Texas. I worked at Chick-fil-A. And working at Chick-fil-A, you would get a $2 raise. $2 raise just for knowing Spanish. What an amazing thing that is. That's a phenomenal thing right there, that you can get a raise for knowing a second language. And then you also get better at relationship building. Is that most of the kitchen where I worked out in Chick-fil-A only knew Spanish. And so by me learning a little bit more about Spanish and more about the language, I was able to enhance my relationship building capabilities, which then would also bring unity within the workforce, giving way to better and a more sound and solid, purpose-driven environment to succeed within the workforce. That's the problem right there. And then we get to the other idea, is that cultural diversity within America. I think cultural diversity is a phenomenal thing. How we get to see, like with Chinatown up in New York, then we get to have Tex-Mex here in Texas, all of these things that enrich the American culture. But they can't contribute with the land with what they live in if they don't know the language of the land. Right here in Bernice Berta Rosa says in Uns Got Your Ton, is that we have lost the ability to teach kids and enable them an easy transition from a different language to English. Is that it's hard for us to teach them another language so that they can be enriched, so that they can contribute to the land with which they live in. And then we sit here and we say about, with Daniel Dominic, in bilingual education, using native language is best for immigrants, is that it kind of goes into this idea of where there is a regression within teaching language and how it causes people to not be able to be within the society. So what should I tell you to do? I say that you should take up a voice for those who can't voice their own opinions because they don't have the language. I say to you to learn another language so that we can unify, not just as a workforce or as a school, but as a community and as a nation. So will you help me in spreading that great news about unifying our country over the basic camaraderie of language?